Scorpio women are rarely understood at the surface level. They don't think the way most people think. They don't feel in straight lines, and they don't attach lightly. What looks like intensity is actually regulation. What feels like silence is often observation, and what others mistake for control is usually self-protection. Scorpio women don't form connections emotionally first. They form them at the level of instinct, at the level of safety, at the level of psychological recognition. This is why being close to a Scorpio woman can feel magnetic, unsettling, and deeply personal all at once, and why detaching from her presence can feel harder than expected, even when nothing dramatic happened. This video isn't about traits or stereotypes. It's about how a Scorpio woman actually thinks beneath the surface, how she processes emotion, and how attachment forms when depth meets instinct. If you've ever felt seen, tested, or quietly changed by a Scorpio woman, this is where that experience begins to make sense. If you are Scorpio, please hit like to this video and subscribe to our channel. Please do comment "I am proud Scorpio." If your loved one is Scorpio, please share this video them. This motivates us a lot. Why Scorpio women think in layers, not lines. Scorpio women don't process life in straight lines. Their thinking is layered, circular, and deeply contextual. While most people move from point A to point B, a Scorpio woman moves inward first. She doesn't ask, "What is happening?" She asks, "Why is this happening? And what does it mean beneath the surface?" This is because Scorpio is a fixed water sign. Water represents emotion, memory, and intuition. Fixed energy holds, deepens, and concentrates. Together, this creates a mind that doesn't skim experiences, it absorbs them. A Scorpio woman rarely reacts immediately. She observes, she watches patterns. She listens not only to words, but to tone, pauses, and contradictions. What looks like silence is actually processing. What looks like intensity is often focus. She layers information emotionally, psychologically, and instinctively. She remembers how something felt, not just what was said. She tracks shifts in behavior, not isolated moments. This is why conversations with a Scorpio woman can feel penetrating. She's not following the surface thread, she's following the emotional undercurrent. Linear thinkers may find this unsettling. They want clarity, quick answers, and clean explanations. Scorpio women live comfortably in ambiguity because truth to them is rarely simple. They understand that people are complex, motives are mixed, intentions evolve. This layered thinking makes Scorpio women highly intuitive, but also cautious. Once something is stored emotionally, it stays active in the background. Nothing is fully dismissed until it's fully understood. This is also why Scorpio women don't forget easily. They don't archive experiences as past events. They integrate them into who they are becoming. To understand a Scorpio woman's mind, you have to stop expecting straight answers and start paying attention to depth, the emotional depth people feel but can't explain. People often say that being around a Scorpio woman feels intense, but intensity isn't the right word. What they're sensing is depth, a depth that isn't loud or dramatic, but steady, focused, and emotionally present. A Scorpio woman doesn't skim emotional exchanges. She enters them fully. When she listens with her whole attention. When she feels beneath the surface of the moment. This creates an experience where others feel seen in ways they aren't used to articulating. Her emotional depth comes from her ability to stay with feeling, rather than escape it. Where many people distract themselves or intellectualize emotion, Scorpio women sit with it. They allow discomfort, uncertainty, and vulnerability to exist without rushing to resolve it. This can be disarming for others. Conversations feel heavier, more meaningful, even when nothing personal is being discussed. People often leave interactions with a Scorpio woman feeling affected, but unable to pinpoint why. That's because emotional depth doesn't announce itself. It's felt through presence, through attention, through the way she remembers details that mattered emotionally, even if they seemed insignificant at the time. Scorpio women also have a natural sensitivity to emotional undercurrents. They notice what's being avoided. They sense what's unresolved. This doesn't mean they confront everything directly, but it does mean nothing is missed internally. For some, this depth feels comforting. For others, it feels exposing. Being around a Scorpio woman can bring up emotions people didn't realize they were carrying. This is why people struggle to explain their experience with her. There's no single event or moment to point to. The impact happens gradually, below awareness. Emotional depth isn't something a Scorpio woman turns on or off. It's the lens through which she experiences the world. And when someone enters that space, even briefly, they feel it. That feeling stays, even when the connection doesn't. Why her silence is never empty. When a Scorpio woman goes quiet, it's rarely absence. It's presence turned inward. Her silence isn't confusion, avoidance, or lack of feeling. It's processing. Scorpio women don't speak to fill space. They speak when something has settled enough to be true. While others think out loud, she thinks internally. She listens to what's happening beneath words before responding to what's happening on the surface. This is why her pauses feel charged. There is intention behind them. Silence is how she gathers information. Not just from you, but from herself. She's tracking emotional shifts, inconsistencies, tone and energy. What's said matters, but what's not said matters more. This can feel unsettling to people who are used to immediate feedback. They may interpret her quiet as judgment or withdrawal. In reality, it's discernment. She's deciding what's safe to share and what needs more time. A Scorpio woman understands that words create consequences. Once spoken, something can't be taken back. So she measures, she waits, she lets the emotional truth surface fully before giving it a voice. Her silence is also protective. When she feels overwhelmed, misunderstood, or emotionally exposed, she retreats inward rather than reacting outward. This isn't punishment, it's regulation. There's also depth in her restraint. She doesn't need constant expression to validate connection. She trusts emotional continuity even when nothing is being said. To her, presence doesn't disappear just because conversation pauses. This is why people often feel her silence more than her words. It carries weight, meaning, awareness. When a Scorpio woman finally speaks after being quiet, what she says is usually distilled, clear, and difficult to ignore because her silence was never empty. It was full of observation, feeling and choice. How a Scorpio woman processes trust and threat. A Scorpio woman doesn't approach trust casually. For her, trust isn't an emotion, it's a survival assessment. She is constantly reading her environment for safety and threat, not in a fearful way, but in an instinctive one. This happens automatically, beneath conscious thought. She notices tone shifts, inconsistencies, and subtle changes in behavior long before others register them. Trust, for a Scorpio woman, builds through consistency over time. Words matter far less than patterns. She watches what repeats, what aligns, what contradicts itself, and she stores this information quietly. When something feels safe, she softens. Not all at once, but gradually. She allows emotional access in layers, testing stability at each level before opening further. Trust deepens when presence remains steady, especially during moments of vulnerability. Threat is processed just as instinctively. It doesn't have to be dramatic. A broken pattern, a sudden withdrawal, emotional unpredictability. These are registered as signals, not incidents. When a Scorpio woman senses threat, she rarely confronts immediately. She observes. She pulls back slightly. She reassesses. This isn't manipulation, it's recalibration. Her responses are protective rather than reactive. She tightens emotional boundaries not to punish, but to preserve inner stability. If the threat continues, distance increases. If safety returns, closeness can resume. This is why her shifts can feel sudden to others. In reality, they've been building quietly for some time. Once trust is broken at a deep level, it's difficult to repair. Not because she holds grudges, but because her nervous system remembers instability. Re-entry requires patience, accountability, and emotional consistency. To a Scorpio woman, trust is felt in the body before it's understood by the mind. And when safety is present, her loyalty is profound. But when threat persists, her withdrawal is not emotional, it's instinctual. The psychology behind her intense attachment style. A Scorpio woman doesn't attach lightly, and when she does, it rarely looks casual from the outside. What people often label as intensity is actually depth combined with instinct. Her attachment style is rooted in emotional memory and nervous system bonding. When she connects, she doesn't just connect emotionally, she connects somatically. The body remembers, the psyche imprints. This is why her bonds feel strong, consuming, and difficult to undo. For a Scorpio woman, attachment forms through emotional honesty and psychological recognition. She attaches when she feels seen beneath the surface. When someone recognizes her inner world without trying to control it, something locks in. This intensity isn't about neediness, it's about investment. Scorpio women attach fully, or not at all. Half presence doesn't register as safety. Emotional ambiguity feels threatening rather than exciting. Once attached, she becomes deeply loyal, her focus narrows. The bond becomes central. This is where others may feel overwhelmed, not because she demands constant reassurance, but because her presence is total. She doesn't multitask emotionally. Her attachment also carries a protective edge. Because she bonds deeply, she is highly sensitive to shifts in closeness. Inconsistency is registered immediately. What others might dismiss as minor changes feel significant to her nervous system. This is why separation or emotional distance can feel extreme on this axis. Detachment isn't just emotional loss, it's a disruption of internal regulation. The bond helped her feel oriented and grounded. However, her intensity is not fixed. When attachment is met with stability, honesty, and emotional safety, it softens into devotion. When it's met with unpredictability or threat, it hardens into control or withdrawal. Understanding a Scorpio woman's attachment style means recognizing that her intensity isn't excessive, it's precise. It reflects how deeply she bonds, not how poorly she manages emotion. And once that bond forms, it leaves an imprint, not easily replaced, not quickly forgotten. Why she observes long before she opens up. A Scorpio woman doesn't open up quickly, and it's not because she lacks interest. It's because observation comes before exposure. Before she reveals anything personal, she watches. She notices how people behave when nothing is at stake, how they speak about others, how they handle discomfort, honesty, and responsibility. These small moments tell her far more than direct questions ever could. Observation is her way of gathering emotional data. She's not judging, she's calibrating. She wants to know whether the environment is stable enough to hold her depth without misusing it. A Scorpio woman understands that once something is revealed, it can't be taken back. Emotional openness creates vulnerability, and vulnerability requires safety. So she waits, she studies patterns, she allows time to reveal consistency or contradiction. This can be misread as mystery or distance. In reality, it's discernment. She's not playing hard to get. She's deciding what's worth giving. She also observes how someone responds to boundaries. If her pace is respected, trust builds. If it's rushed, dismissed, or challenged, she retreats. Pressure doesn't create closeness with a Scorpio woman. It signals threat. When she finally opens up, it's deliberate. What she shares has been considered, tested, weighed internally. This is why her vulnerability feels significant. It wasn't casual, it was chosen. Her slow opening also protects against emotional burnout. Scorpio women feel deeply, Without boundaries, they can absorb too much too quickly. Observation allows her to regulate intensity before attachment forms. This is why people are often surprised when a Scorpio woman suddenly becomes open after long restraint. To her, it isn't sudden at all. The decision was made long before the words appeared. She opens when trust feels embodied, not promised. And once that door opens, it rarely closes lightly. How control becomes self-protection, not manipulation. Control is one of the most misunderstood aspects of a Scorpio woman's psychology. What others often label as manipulation is, more accurately, self-protection shaped by deep emotional awareness. A Scorpio woman doesn't seek control for power or dominance. She seeks it for safety. When she feels emotionally secure, there is very little need for control at all. It only appears when something feels unstable, unpredictable, or threatening beneath the surface. Her awareness is heightened. She notices shifts quickly. When consistency breaks, her nervous system responds by tightening boundaries. This can look like emotional distance, selective openness, or increased observation. These are not tactics. They are regulation strategies. A Scorpio woman understands how influence works because she is sensitive to emotional dynamics. She knows when something is unsaid. She senses leverage because she feels connection deeply. But awareness of influence doesn't automatically mean misuse of it. When she feels safe, she's transparent. She doesn't test. She doesn't withhold. Control dissolves into presence. When safety disappears, control replaces vulnerability to prevent further exposure. This is why her behavior can seem contradictory. At times, she's open and deeply trusting. At other times, she's guarded and precise. The difference isn't intention, it's perceived safety. People often misinterpret her withdrawal as punishment. In reality, it's containment. She's pulling energy inward to stabilize herself rather than escalate outward. True manipulation is calculated and self-serving. A Scorpio woman's control is reactive and protective. It emerges when emotional risk outweighs emotional safety. Understanding this distinction changes everything. It shifts the narrative from power games to nervous system defense. When trust is restored, control softens. When threat persists, protection remains. Because for a Scorpio woman, vulnerability is sacred. And it's only offered where it can survive. Why detaching from a Scorpio woman feels so difficult? Detaching from a Scorpio woman rarely feels clean or simple. Even when the relationship ends, something lingers. That's because the bond was never just emotional. It was regulatory. When a Scorpio woman connects, she connects at the level of the nervous system. Her presence isn't only felt through conversation or shared experiences. It's felt through emotional attunement, intensity, and psychological recognition. The body adapts to that closeness. Over time, her energy becomes a reference point, the rhythm of interaction, the depth of attention, the feeling of being seen beneath the surface. These aren't easily replaced. They become familiar in a way that feels grounding, even when the relationship itself becomes difficult. Detachment then feels like disorientation, not just sadness, but imbalance. The nervous system looks for what it used to regulate against. This is why separation can feel like withdrawal rather than heartbreak. A Scorpio woman also leaves an imprint because she invites depth. People often access parts of themselves with her that they don't reach elsewhere. Emotional honesty, vulnerability, intensity. When the connection ends, it's not just the person that's gone. It's the version of the self that existed in that dynamic. This is why logic often fails after separation. The mind may understand why things ended, but the body hasn't caught up yet. Memory, sensation, and emotional expectation persist. Scorpio women don't scatter emotional energy. When they bond, they focus. That focus leaves a mark. Even absence feels present. Detaching takes time because it requires internal recalibration. New rhythms must form. New sources of regulation must replace what once felt instinctive. This doesn't mean the bond was meant to last forever. It means it was meant to change you, and bonds that change you are never released quickly. They fade slowly, reshaping attachment long after they end. The shadow side of Scorpio woman psychology. Every depth has a shadow, and for a Scorpio woman, the shadow emerges when intensity replaces awareness. At her core, she feels deeply and bonds strongly. But when fear enters the system, those same strengths can turn inward. Attachment becomes vigilance. Sensitivity becomes suspicion. Protection becomes control. The shadow doesn't appear without cause. It's usually activated by betrayal, inconsistency, or emotional unpredictability. When safety is compromised, her nervous system shifts into defense. She begins monitoring rather than trusting. In this state, emotional insight can turn into testing. Silence becomes strategic. Distance becomes a tool rather than a boundary. Not to hurt, but to regain a sense of power and stability. The Scorpio woman in shadow may struggle to release what no longer feels safe. Letting go can feel like annihilation rather than loss. So she holds on longer than is healthy, replaying emotional loops that keep her attached to pain. Resentment can quietly build. Because she feels everything, unresolved emotions don't fade easily. They sink deeper. Without conscious processing, intensity has nowhere to go but inward. Control becomes tempting here, not for dominance, but to avoid vulnerability. The fear of being exposed again outweighs the desire for closeness. This shadow can be exhausting, for her and for those connected to her. The bond stops regulating and starts destabilizing. But the shadow isn't a flaw, it's a signal. It shows where healing is needed, where boundaries must be rebuilt, and where awareness has been lost. When a Scorpio woman becomes conscious of her shadow, transformation is possible. Intensity returns to depth. Control softens into trust. Protection turns back into presence. Her shadow does not define her. It teaches her, and when integrated, it becomes one of her greatest sources of wisdom and emotional strength. What a Scorpio woman is like at her highest level. At her highest level, a Scorpio woman is no longer driven by fear or survival. She is guided by awareness and choice. Her depth remains, but it is no longer overwhelming. Intensity becomes focus. Emotion becomes clarity. She feels deeply without losing herself inside those feelings. Trust at this level is embodied, not tested. She doesn't need to control or monitor emotional dynamics. She knows when to open and when to step back, and both come from self-respect rather than fear. Her attachment softens into devotion. She connects without gripping, loves without possession, protects without restricting. Emotional honesty flows naturally because she no longer fears exposure. At her highest expression, her silence becomes wisdom rather than defense. She speaks with precision, not restraint. When she listens, it's with presence, not evaluation. She no longer confuses intensity with intimacy. Peace does not feel empty to her, it feels safe. Emotional stability becomes attractive rather than boring. A Scorpio woman at this level transforms others, not through force, but through presence. People feel grounded around her, seen without being dissected, accepted without being absorbed. Her boundaries are clear and calm. She doesn't need to withdraw dramatically or hold on desperately. She can let go when something no longer aligns, trusting that loss does not equal annihilation. This version of her is deeply loyal, emotionally honest, and resilient. She chooses connection, not compulsion, depth, not chaos. At her highest level, a Scorpio woman is powerful without being guarded. She doesn't need to prove her strength. She lives it. And when someone meets her here, the connection is no longer addictive. It's sustainable.